speaking of debacles, let's move on to the war in Ukraine. And we can put up this this first element here. Russian President Vladimir Putin gave a fascinating interview, which follows on his Tucker Carlson interview, where he hinted that he was strongly hinted that he was open to serious negotiations about bringing this war to an end. Now, in an interview that our friend of the show, Yegor Kotkin, says that the Kremlin is kind of blasting all over to the world, which shows that this is not a gaffe. This was a very kind of calculated message that he is now sending out. He says Russia is ready for peace negotiations with Ukraine based on the realities that have developed on the ground. And the latter part of that is clearly an indication that he's saying we're going to keep the territory that we have conquered, but we will, reach an agreement, an enforceable agreement that would end this war. The question for Ukraine would have to be, is this the best deal that they can get? And can they get a better deal if the let's say the United States decides that we are going to actually send hundreds of billions of dollars more for this war effort? Is there a world in which, with hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands more Ukrainian lives, and several years of time, Ukraine can conquer back territory that Russia has seized, and then go to the negotiating table having reconquered this territory? Because if that is a possibility, you're going to have people within the Ukrainian government who are going to say that, and the Ukrainian population say, we need to do this, not 1 inch to the Russian invaders. But that's where we get to this new report in a French investigative magazine called Marianne, which is not getting picked up here in the United States at all. But they obtained a cache of intelligence documents, basically that include the French assessment of the Ukrainian capabilities. And we can put up this article right here. People can go check it out. You can just click the English. You can just go ahead and click the English translate button, and you can get the gist of it. But essentially, what they're saying is some of what we already know, but they put it in starker terms that some here in the U.S. May realize are appropriate. First of all, it talks about the absolute depletion of manpower on the Ukrainian side. That Zelensky needs 30,000 conscripts a month. He's getting less than half of that, whereas Russia is able to pull in 30,000 volunteers every month. Russia is able to cycle in and out its reserves and its fresh recruits with its veterans, whereas Ukraine is relying oftentimes on entire units that have 3 weeks of training. They say that in the 2023 counteroffensive, that was debilitating for the Ukrainian troops. That they were up against much better trained and equipped troops, and also defense is easier than offense. It also says that the Russians have gotten insanely good at communications jamming. The Ukrainian reliance on drones then relies on communications. And if you can jam the communications between the drone operator and the drone, your drone is now just a flying rock at that point.
One of the big questions, I think, going forward, too, for people who want to continue the sort of neoconservative argument that this incentivizes Putin to just take back all of the former Soviet territory. If you concede 1 inch of the Donbass to Putin, he's next going to immediately invade, Finland, and then he's going to take Sweden, and he is going to reconquer Europe. One of the big questions, I think, for that is if Vladimir Putin right now is willing to sit down at the table and discuss these terms and ends up, let's just say hypothetically, ends up getting some territory in the Donbass. And that comes after 2 years of grueling, bloody war where he loses hundreds of thousands of Russian men and reclaims some small amount of territory in the Donbass. That was already, in many cases, contested. That was already a war zone in many cases. And he doesn't get to Kyiv. That initial expedition that the Russian military took was stopped by Western forces, was halted by Ukraine. And then they get into this long stalemate for more than 2 years. Is that really granting Putin a permission slip to conquer the rest of Europe. Is that really your argument as to why we can't sit down and negotiate right now? Because any negotiation would just give Putin license to take all of Ukraine and then take Poland and then take Finland. That's really your argument at this point. That's really the only good, the only possible logic that you can cling to as a reason not to negotiate. But it's stupid.
Yeah, and let's say you're a diehard supporter of Ukraine and you believe that the invasion was fundamentally evil and needs to be rolled back. The question, though,
which it was fundamentally evil.
And let's say, but the question then becomes, what is the risk and what is the cost of not entering into negotiations at this point? And the risk is losing further territory. And so the Marianne report has an entire section underneath the risk of a Russian breakthrough is real. And they talk about how, in mid-February, Ukraine abandoned the city of Avdiivka. We covered that here. That was a huge, it was a huge collapse. But what they zero in on kind of the how of that happened. One was that the kind of Russian advance had found innovative ways to target the Ukrainian positions and was able to break through despite them sending an elite brigade, the 3rd Azov Air Assault Brigade, to kind of buttress their line, and the line collapsed. The line collapsed anyway. They write, the decision to retreat by the Ukrainian armed forces was a surprise. Its suddenness and lack of preparation, fearing that this choice was more endured than decided by the Ukrainian command, which was suggesting a possible onset of, quote, disarray. In other words, it's not obvious that the Ukrainian military command ordered a retreat so much as that the troops just said, we're out of here. And the Ukrainian command was then forced to accept that retreat. It goes on. The Ukrainian, and this is key, the Ukrainian armed forces have tactically shown that they do not possess the human and material capabilities to hold a sector of the front that is subjected to the assailant's effort. The Ukrainian failure in Avdiivka shows that despite the emergency deployment of an elite brigade, Kyiv is not capable of locally restoring a sector of the front that collapses. So what does that mean? Like, if the Ukrainians are not capable of holding a sector of a front that is specifically targeted by the Russians, that means a breakthrough is either imminent or possible. Mm-hmm. And that gives Putin serious leverage in negotiations. Because if you have shown that you cannot, even with your elite brigade, maintain your line, you're at risk of complete collapse.
Mm-hmm. So Putin also in an interview with state media, since I guess it's ahead of the election is how it's being framed. Like I'm on RT right now. Yeah.
After he jailed and killed Navalny.
Yeah. He has a subheading, or RT has a subheading here that says Russia ready for nuclear war. The quote from Putin is, for us, the Ukraine conflict is a matter of life and death. For them, it's a matter of improving their tactical position globally and in Europe. He said that Putin insisted that Russia is ready if the U.S. tries to, quote, play chicken. Moscow is prepared to use nuclear weapons and considers its arsenal, quote, more advanced than anyone else's. He also, he had some other comments about the war. Putin said, for example, that when Macron said the West should have, quote, no red lines when it comes to Russia, Putin replied that is Western politicians fantasizing and riling themselves up. So when he says, and this is very clear, it should have been very clear since the beginning, for us, the Ukraine conflict is a matter of life and death. And for them, for the West, it's a matter of improving their tactical position globally and in Europe. He has more men available to him to fight this war than Ukraine does. The Wall Street Journal report that Ukraine is essentially plucking war-age men off the street. Not even actually war-age men, people that are older than you would consider war-age men off the streets, military-age men off the streets, because they can't locate men. They don't have enough people to fight the war.
And did you see the viral video of like 34 Ukrainians who were trying to sneak into Romania, and they were caught at the border, and the Ukrainian border guards are just like beating the hell out of them. Yeah. And they're going to take them, and then they're going to push them to the front lines, where they're going to have to fight and get killed. And that's what it means to continue this war. Yeah. Like you're at bayonet point marching people to a front that they are not willingly signing up to go and fight on.
Well, and one thing that sort of the neoconservative crowd or the foreign policy establishment has argued over the course of the last 2 years is that, Boris Johnson wasn't scuttling any real talks, or the U.S., to what Israel had said, wasn't scuttling any real talks because Putin had not been serious about actually negotiating on serious terms. That when Putin was saying he was ready to negotiate with the United States and with the West and with Zelensky, he wasn't actually serious about that. Whether or not that's a good excuse not to sit down with him is a different debate. But at this point, Ryan, I think it's hard to dismiss Putin's overtures here as unserious.
Yeah. And also, I found this Marianne report from the Twitter account of Arnaud Bertrand, which I recommend everybody follow if you're not. He's on Twitter. He's at RNAUDBERTRAND. He's often finding and then translating really interesting stuff from around the world. So I highly recommend that one. Again, let's just read this Putin quote one more time. Russia is ready for peace negotiations with Ukraine based on the realities that have developed on the ground.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.